Here's a quick recap, because I know you didn't see my last video. Dungeons & Dragons is a tabletop role-playing game that puts you into a fantasy world with swords and magic and Dungeons & Dragons. You roll dice to do things. What things? Anythings. From casting a spell to sneaking around like Solid Snake to asking that smith to lower the price on that fancy new sword you want, to attacking that smith after he refuses to give you the totally not played up player discount for that fancy new sword you want. But who are you in this fantastical world of swords and magic and Dungeons & Dragons? Well, sit down, because it's time to learn about character creation. In these easy steps. Step 1. Choose a race. There are many, many different races to choose from, and I am not going over all of them in this video because there are well over a dozen, and I don't have the time. They get their own video. I will say that no matter what race you choose, each one gets a spiffy bonus that usually has a special ability. For example, if you pick a human, not only are you basic, but you also get a nifty +1 to all your stats and a feat. Or, if you pick a minotaur, you can smack people around with your horns. Get the idea? It is important to remember that your race does not heavily affect your character abilities, in or out of combat. 5th edition is very good at making sure that your gameplay comes from your class and your items and not your race. However, this doesn't mean that your race is nothing more than different flavors of buff bars. For instance, if you choose to play a big scary orc covered head to toe in thick armor and wielding a massive battle axe, will you be cool? Absolutely. Will the humans guarding the city gates let you into the city? Probably not. Meanwhile, your elf friend gets to walk right on in, no questions asked. This is obviously an exaggeration, but it does happen in some games. Your race might not define how your character plays, but it can impact how the world of the game sees and interacts with your character. When choosing a race, talk to your DM about how your race is viewed in the world. If you don't want to play someone that people will look at and assume you're the enemy, then maybe put that orc to the side and take that elf off the shelf. Or maybe you don't give a damn about what the world thinks of your character, and you'll tough out the consequences no matter what. In which case, go ham. Next up on our menu is classes. This is the bread and butter of your character. Your class defines your playstyle and role in the game. There are currently 13 different classes to choose from, each with their own unique traits and abilities. They will get their own videos in the future, but I can break them down into 3 broad categories: Martial, Caster, and Half-Caster. Martial characters are the ones that don't have the magic TM, but they are really good at hitting things and not being hit by things. Martial classes, like the Fighter and Barbarian, rely on their skill with a weapon and their own physical abilities to win the day. They are the most straightforward of the 3, but don't confuse simple for weak. Martial classes are essential to the long-term survival of any party. But now on to the Casters. With a word of power and a flick of a stick, one blast from a caster will kill these goblins quick. You have chosen to be a powerhouse of magic. Just keep your swords at arm's length, or your story will be tragic. Casters are the magic boys of D&D. Whether you get an unholy pact, have years of study, or you're just built different, casters are forces of raw power that any party would be glad to have. Magic, and being able to cast magic, is a whole thing in D&D, and caster classes like wizards or druids are all about that magic life. Magic is extremely versatile and can do almost anything: attack, defend, heal, change the weather, cook a meal, just about anything. What kind of magic you weave depends on what spells you choose from your character spell list, and what kind of caster you are. What's important to understand is that magic has its limits, and most casters are squishy boys who drop if a goblin so much as sneezes on them. Just don't get out in front of the martial classes and keep an eye on your spell slots, and you'll be fine. And finally, the 3rd sibling, the Half-Casters. These guys are classes that split their time between magic class and the gym, so while they can't throw as many fireballs as a wizard, they sure as hell can dish out more fists of fury. Half-casters, like the ranger or the paladin, are the kinds of classes that get magic but aren't reliant on it. That said, some half-casters are more magical than others, so it all comes down to your personal preference. All in all, half-casters are a lot of fun to play and have loads of flavor to them, perfect for filling in any niches in any party. Finally, for character creation comes your equipment and your background. Your equipment is given to you in a nifty little list underneath your character's chosen class. Simple, straightforward, easy. Moving on. Your background describes who your character was before they became an adventurer. Perhaps you were a noble. Perhaps you were an orphan on the streets of the city who had to use your wit and ruthlessness, and your sleight of hand to pick pockets, steal from shopkeepers just to survive. Or perhaps you're an acolyte of a god who was sent on a holy quest. Regardless of what background you pick, you will always be given some building blocks for making your character's personality. You will be given a list of ideals, of bonds, and of goals, and flaws to choose from. These greatly help build your character into the living, breathing person you want it to be. The final thing I want to say is that it's important to talk to your DM and your party members about who wants to play what. Party composition is important, and while a team full of wizards might sound cool, you might start to see the flaws in this later down the line, when arrows are coming at your face and you're all out of spell slots. Ultimately, though, you should play what you think is most fun for you. After all, why go through all this trouble if you're not going to have a good time? I hope this has helped you get your feet in the water of Dungeons & Dragons. The Player's Handbook does a wonderful job of walking you through everything I just said in more detail and giving you step-by-step instructions on character creation at the beginning of the book. Definitely check it out. And also, more videos on races and classes and some fun lore videos in the works as well. It can happen. Alright, bye.